Hi everyone, delonewolf here. Welcome back to EVE Talk, your weekly look at the market in EVE Online. Biggest news for me is that the March release is coming next week on Tuesday, March the 14th. So we'll have some interesting features in there. I do think we have to, first of all, give the new scanning window a chance. I've not used it extensively, but I do think that a few scanning and exploration sessions are what I'll get started on there. And other than that, yeah, you should definitely take a look at the patch notes or the EVE updates website. There's quite a few interesting things that are happening, including some Rorcal rebalancing, so that could be interesting for the minerals, for instance. And we'll see how all of that goes. Of course, the mass test was pretty successful, so I think that we're looking good. We are here for the market, of course. As always, we are going to start with plex. That's at 1 minute. There we go, and you can see that plex have gone up. They are up to around 1.1 billion on the sellers in JITA itself, 1,056,000,000 for the buyers in JITA. You can also see that there's a decent amount of fresh sell orders that are still coming in here, so I would see this as a surprising amount of activity. I'm still seeing in the last 24 hours a sell order of 1,150,000,000, so this is quite a spread, 50 million between the most expensive and the least expensive sell order in the last 24 hours. We can also see on the chart here that plex are actually taking off a little bit. It's pretty damn visual right here that after crossing the 20-day moving average, 5-day moving average was just unstoppable, and here the average prices are coming closer to 1.1 billion. This is... why am I only grabbing the scale here? That's a little bit weird. All right, I'll have to take a look at that later. Another interesting thing could be perimeter, of course. Here we get sell orders down to 1,076,000,000, so clearly these have gone up as well. Quite a bit of demand for plex at the moment. And the buyers, well, it's not, well, actually, perimeter right here, up to 1,065,000,000. So that's very narrow margin, only 10-11 million is here. And the amount of sell orders in the perimeter hubs, it's decent, but again, well, 18 and 12, these are two pretty big ones. All the other ones are 10 and less, except for the latest one here, 20 plex being sold at 1,076,000,000. So for me, personally, I think that we should still wait and see what's going to happen. I would put my sell price at least 1.2 billion. I think if we do shoot up quite substantially, and for instance we can get some nice renewed interest in the game after some FanFest announcements and maybe an awesome summer expansion or something like that, then plex could actually take off towards that price range, and I think that could be a good place to sell. On the other hand, if after FanFest the summer slump starts to take shape and we actually go down, then I would wait for at least prices below 1 billion before I start buying, and my preferred range would actually be 900 million. Not sure if we'll reach 900 million anymore, but 1.2 billion on the seller side, I do think that patience is going to pay off here in this situation. For now, this increase in price, I don't have an actual explanation for that. This actually comes a little bit unexpected in my book, but it's also still too early to start pulling the trigger on investments or anything like that. We'll have to keep an eye and see what happens with plex in the upcoming weeks. Next up, multiple pilot training certificates. These are emptying out here. We don't see that many of them. 9 of them are being sold for 1,110,000,000, but the next one is 1,165,000,000. So that's quite a jump up after these 9. Buyers are up to 1,077,000,000. I would say that this is an indication that there is a decent amount of ISK flowing into plex related stuff. People are investing in that quite heavily. Of course, on plex itself, you have a decent amount of people with a lot of plex that can probably make small profits on getting rid of some of their plex. But what you should probably notice here is that a lot of them are selling 1, 2, 4, 3, 1, 3. plex here. So a lot of people are taking small profits here, but there's definitely no massive dumping happening. This is more of, I would say, people that try to take a little bit of profit on a single trade, if maybe they have something else to invest in or something like that. But it's definitely not a massive dumping. I think that demand is higher than the supply, and that yeah, just a couple of people notice this, try to get a little bit of profit out of it, but definitely not with their entire stocks. Another thing that you should maybe notice is that we start at $1 billion, at 1.1 billion, and we quickly add 5 million, then we add another 20 million. So it can go up quite quickly. If just 50 plex are sold, we're finding ourselves in a completely different price range. So this is quite an interesting evolution here. We'll have to keep a close eye on it. And of course the multiple pilot training certificate is following that as well, but on a smaller market. And here after one order we jump another 55 million, and then a few later we jump to $1.250 billion. So we have to be careful. If demand picks up even more, then we could actually get into interesting price territories for some sales. Next up, the pilot body resculpt, also up a little bit under that pressure, but again this is a very small market. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 are only being sold on the market. So I guess that people are just not interested in the body resculpts anymore, which is normal by now. If you're planning to make an alpha character, those are practically throwaways. You can always make a new one if you really want to, rather than try to make one that you've created just to test the game visually pleasing. And the big hype of skill injectors, skill extractors is over. That was a great time for the pilot body resculpt because people did want to create their perfect toons at that point. Skill extractors next. That's of course a decently large market, just like plex, and very strongly correlated. Here we can also see that we're taking off and that we're heading towards 260 million ISK. Sellers 254 million ISK. That's quite surprising with an average price up here. Let's take a quick look. Average price almost 260 million. So are these fresh sell orders? Yes, look at that. All of these really recent in the last few hours. So this is a massive amount of dumping, all of them at 14 as well. Someone is trying to make quite a bit of a profit out of their skill extractors. They are of course going to slow down the increase in price. So if I was looking at plex and pilot training certificates, I was seeing very small fresh sell orders that were trying to take profit from this increase in price, which would indicate that more demand could actually increase the price even further. If you look at the skill extractors though, there's at least one big player out there willing to pull the trigger on all of this, and he's going down from 270 million to 253 million right here, including a couple more, 80 and 58, probably someone else, but he was trying to sell his skill extractors starting at 268 million all the way down to 254 million. So he wants that ISK for quite a few extractors. I think because it's always 14, that this is very likely to be a single player that is doing a massive dump right here. This is of course going to stall any increase in price in the skill extractors. The interesting thing is going to be, will this be the right move, and will we then also start to see plex hesitating, go back down a little bit, or is this an early trigger from someone that is selling their skill extractors, and will an increased price of plex allow the skill extractors to continue to go even higher as well, which would of course mean that all of these will have to be sold at some point. So quite interesting to see this massive, maybe a dump, maybe a relisting, that is possible as well. But this is quite different from what we're seeing in the plex sell orders and the multiple training certificate sell orders as well. On the other hand, the chart looks very similar of course. Skill injectors are plateauing at a pretty high price. 660 million is a decent investment for some skill points. 665 million for the sellers, 647 million for the buyers. Quite a narrow margin here, and of course we couldn't keep going up the way we were doing right here. This is up to 680 million. At some point, of course, prices do stabilize a little bit, but we're staying well above average at the moment, and even the volumes are still doing quite nicely since the Ascension expansion. So I'm saying this as, yeah, there is a decent demand for fresh skill points here, and there is a bit of a premium to be paid on the skill injectors at the moment. Next up, we have some minerals. Let's start that at 10 minutes. All right, on the money. With titanium, we can finally see a little bit of a trend break, that which we saw in pyrite and isogen last week. A bit of a bottom formation is finally happening here for titanium as well, with sell orders back above 4 ISK. Oh, and there was actually one sizable sell order of 406 that was still remaining, so this is why I took that price for the ticker. But in the meantime, sellers starting at 419, it's a tiny one, then 428, so it looks like maybe with the patch notes confirming the nerfs to the Rorcal, that things are turning around a little bit for the minerals. The first really big sell order here is a billion units at 459, which is substantially higher than the 385 or something like that I've picked up a bit more titanium last week after making Eve Talk. So I do have a bit of an investment in titanium and in pyrite, but I would like to sell at like 5, 6, yeah, probably around 6 ISK would be my trigger to take my profits, because I bought all of that titanium for less than 4 ISK. And it's not even that much. As I've said, I tend to invest in small numbers, packages of maybe 100 million or 200 million if I'm feeling really good about it. But titanium looks like the trend is breaking here, like the bottom was formed at maybe 380, something like that I would say, on the average prices. Sellers I don't think went really lower than 388, 385, and right now, of course, hopefully this has some momentum and we can see titanium back in a bit of a more normal trade range. Pyrite next. Well, you know, this if pyrite remains a predictor for what titanium is going to do next week, then it's not looking too good. We did manage to go up above 6 ISK on the median daily price here for a moment, but we're already going back down below that. So sellers are back down to 578. Buyers are still at 560 though, so I don't think that will break 5 ISK, which we have done, I think, here. It's extremely close to 5 ISK on a couple of days, but it doesn't look like the increased price here for these high-tech minerals is going to take off all of a sudden in a very substantial way. So 578 for the sellers, 560 for the buyers. A bit of hesitation here. The market doesn't really know, should we start going up in these, or should we keep all of this this massive supply that is still coming in at the moment. Of course, going to be another week of heavy Rorcal mining in Osik in all likeliness. Should we keep that in mind and try to pick up some more of that really cheap pyrite? You know, to be honest, 560, anything below 6 ISK on the longer term, I do think at some point is going to make you some ISK. But again here, don't go completely crazy, don't spend all your ISK in that. I bought, I would say at the right time when pyrite is concerned, or did I invest a little bit more last week? I'm not exactly sure anymore. If you bought like below 5.5 ISK, of course, that's looking like it's going to be pretty damn good. The question is, should you still consider investing now for like 570, something like that? I think you can still pick up cheap pyrite and that we will actually go up in price at some point. Mexalon next. Oh, that is nice. Actually working on a 1-year high with average price towards 78 ISK. But a little bit of dumping is happening here as well. 73.75 for one sell order, and a couple after 5 sell orders we're back up to 77 ISK. And the buyers though 73.61. That margin is extremely strong, small considering the momentum. I think it's looking very likely that we'll start trading on the seller side on the 77-78 price band here, which is, well, a 1-year high for Mexalon. So again, if you're mining in high-sec, always try to pick some ores that have some Mexalon in it, because that is currently the nullsec bottleneck. and that is the one mineral that they're trying to import in order to make up for that, and it's probably also the reason that we are seeing dumping of all the other high-sec minerals. Isogen next, very similar to pyrite. After crawling out of the bottom at 42 ISK on a median daily price, which is extremely low, we jumped up above 50 ISK for just a moment, and now here we're hesitating. Which way are we going? It's hard to say. 49 ISK for the sellers, 45.52 for the buyers right now. So the very best investment opportunity was probably around 2 weeks ago or last week for titanium. The question is it still alright to invest at this price range? It's still extremely low. Isogen below 50 is historically speaking a very low price point, but you also of course have to ask yourself, is the Rorqual nerf really going to be substantial enough that we'll actually see or at least start to see a comeback of these minerals? And that is not exactly certain. Next up here we've got Noxium. Noxium also crawling out the hole a little bit, seems to have a little bit more momentum, but we're probably going to stall at 330 ISK, 326 for the sellers, 316 for the buyers. Median daily price at the very bottom here was less than 300 ISK. That was of course a pretty damn good time to pick up a little bit of Noxium, but at this point I do think we'll start hesitating. I think most people here are going to continue taking their positions, you know, depending on whether you think that no, you know what, I want to get rid of my stock, so I'm gonna sell some of it, or if I do want to be ready in case they go higher, then we'll start to see a little bit of demand. But most people will probably wait for the actual patch to release to see what the bigger spread in the anomalies is going to mean for Rorqual mining efficiency in nullsec, because I think that's where most of the stuff comes from, and how big the Rorqual nerf, possibly the kill mails that will be generated from the excavators drones as well, how the whole package is actually going to influence supply. That is something that we'll have to wait for the actual patch deployment next week to be able to gauge that. When it comes to nullsec minerals, let's start with some Zydrine that is also taking off. So here again, buying below 1000 ISK was actually a pretty damn good idea. Sellers are at 1000 ISK now, 992. Buyers have been forced up. This margin is extremely strong, and the question again is, I think we'll start hesitating here. We'll wait for the patch next week, and then of course the actual impact on the market will start to show itself. And here we've got Megasite. Here we're actually starting to see that hesitation as well. In a couple steps we're slowly going down, trying to find a more normal price, I would say, of around 1400. Considering how low Zydrine is, Megasite still selling at 1410 and buyers at 1355 is still a very strong price for Megasite at the moment, especially since just a couple months ago we basically had parity. We had in November we had Megasite at 1000 ISK and Zydrine also at a little bit below 1000 ISK, 960. So now this spread between these two minerals is much higher. So Megasite has clearly once again become top dog when it comes to the nullsec minerals here. But we also see that it is hesitating to find the right price spot. So a lot of people, I think, are basically waiting for the actual Rorqual nerfs, all of the changes to hit the market and to see what's going to happen here. And finally we have Morphite as well, Tech 2 related mineral, of course, that is trading, well, sometimes at around 10,000 ISK, sometimes a little bit below that. I think if you're on this downside here, at which we are at the moment, towards 9,600, sellers are at 9,700, buyers are at 9,300. If you can buy a little bit above these buy orders on a downward leg of the chart here, you're probably making a decent investment for Morphite. It's still below 10,000 ISK. If something drastic happens with some Tech 2 production, we could definitely see this spike up substantially. And of course, buying at this point is bound to be at the better price range as well than, you know, on this increasing price here. I think at the moment you're doing pretty well. You can probably easily pick up some Morphite at like 9,400 ISK or something like that, and I have a small Morphite investment myself as well. And that's it for minerals. Next up we've got some PI at 19 minutes. Okay, these will go in order. Construction Blocks was working on a second really good top here towards 14,000 ISK, but has to give a little bit of ground at this point. So selling now for 13,000 ISK with 29,000 units coming in here. That is clearly going to continue the downward trend if this kind of supply comes in. And the buyers are at 12,500 ISK. I would put the buyers at average and the sellers at close to average, maybe just a slight bit above that, but 13k right here, yeah, we have to give substantial ground, and it looks like if you want to actually sell your construction blocks, you have to go a little bit below that. If once that starts 12,900, 12,800, I think we'll just basically start to come into parity with the chart right here. So construction blocks, nice couple of weeks ago towards a second peak at 14k, but doesn't manage to stay there. Consumer electronics next. These are taking off quite nicely. I personally feel very dumb for not having grabbed any at like less than 11,000 ISK here, because that was clearly a nice little bottom that was forming. If we had been able to buy consumer electronics at 11,000, we can now sell that for 14,000 ISK. And look at the buyers here, 13,900 as well. Very small spread. This is basically being forced up quite substantially by high demand. Buyers are willing to pay that premium, which means that in just a couple of weeks here, the consumer electronics have gone from what I would call a little bit below average, 12k, something like that, definitely below 12.5, to, well, decently well above average, both on sellers and on buyers. So we had a great buy opportunity early January, which I didn't make a move on, but we definitely should have. Consumer electronics, you're definitely selling above average at the moment. Coolants was doing really well for the last few weeks, in the last month here, since February. You can see here 16,000 ISK. That is of course an extremely good price for coolants. The average is probably more likely to be between 11 and 12,000 ISK, and at some point of course that has to end as well. So we're giving back some ground, which is only natural. Still 14,350 ISK for sellers is well above average. 13,700 is still decently above average as well for coolants. Not the best time to sell, but definitely not bad. Enriched uranium next, working on a double top towards 15.5k. That is quite interesting to see that we had to give back ground, but that we managed to come back from that. So demand must be quite high for PI. Enriched uranium currently selling for 16.2 thousand ISK, and the buyers are at 14,900. If we look at this entire chart averages of enriched uranium, it's a bit trickier, right? This is not like coolants. This takes some more exclusive planets to create on a single planet, enriched uranium, but average price maybe 13.5k, something like that, and we're well above that as well, and seemingly on even higher demand. 16,000 each for the sellers is definitely a very good price. Mechanical parts is just building and building. This is quite crazy. This is actually a very, very unusual chart, because I would say that mechanical parts also being produced from barren planets is very common, very easy to produce. Average price, I would say, is probably 12,000 maybe. Maybe this trade range, which could be 11,500. Yeah, 11k actually, could actually still be considered a decently average price as well. Maybe a little bit below that, but definitely not that bad. And to see mechanical parts over the course of 1 to 3 months built consistently towards 15,000 ISK is quite surprising, especially on some lower volume days as well. People must not be producing enough mechanical parts. Currently selling for 15,250. This of course does start to bring the players out here. 83,000, 50,000, 50,000 is going to slow things down a little bit, but the surprising thing is that here buyers are also up to 14,900 ISK, which is very, very high, well above average, and maybe we'll start plateauing here. But what are the volumes here? 160,000 units, 200,000 units, 113,000 units right there, still at 14k. This is definitely not going to crash anytime soon. So mechanical parts, it's a great time to sell, and all you need is a barren planet, which is decently common throughout New Eden. Oxygen on all that upwards pressure is also going higher, of course, heading towards 550 ISK. Sellers are at 592, buyers are at just below 500. So this is a decently large spread, 20%, something like that. And I would say that the sellers are well above average, and the buyers are a little bit above average, but not by that much. It's a pretty wide spread here. Of course, oxygen is very, very easily produced. It doesn't require two materials, so you just grab is it oxygen isotopes or something like that from any planet that has them, which is quite a lot of them, and then you need one manufacturing run and you've got oxygen. So I think that is why demand supply can very easily plug this gap if people really want to. Anyone that's making oxygen could actually switch their extractors a little bit so that they create extra that's creating coolants, I'm sorry, could switch their extraction a little bit to create extra oxygen and bring that to the market, for instance. So it would be very easy for this to go back down all of a sudden, which is, I think, why we're seeing this spread be much higher than on mechanical parts where the buyers are very close to the sellers. Next up here we've got robotics. Under that pressure is probably also pretty damn high, up to 120,000 ISK. Last week we have to give back a little bit of ground, but sellers are still at 122,840. Very nice price, and buyers 118,000. That is the big surprise here. Once again, very narrow margin. Buyers forced up substantially, so there is this very high demand for PI at the moment, and a lot of people can make a decent amount of money on that, I would say, because yeah, 6 planets even in high-sec at the moment is going to make you a decent amount of ISK every week, just for producing stuff like coolants, stuff like mechanical parts, etc. Rocket fuel, ooh, very interesting as well here. Didn't see that coming. I was thinking that when we were crashing back down towards 12.5k, we were actually set to start moving sideways considering the rest of the chart, but no, we're right back up here. So someone must have dumped massive amounts, but the market said, thank you for that cheap rocket fuel. We're right back up to 14,800 for the sellers, 13,000 for the buyers. Here the spread is a little bit larger than most of the other ones that we've seen here, but quite an upwards momentum here all of a sudden, back to 15,000 ISK on average for rocket fuel, well above average. Self-harmonizing power cores, structure related, of course, is under pressure here, starting to go well below 2 million. Sellers are 2,010,000, buyers 1,860,000, and the fact that we have average prices just a little bit above 1.9 million indicates that actually a lot of these producers are now telling themselves, you know what, I'm not gonna bother with a sell order, I'm just gonna start filling these buy orders, so that we get these average prices of 1.9 million and that constantly decreasing price range here. It's of course because at the moment there is no indication whatsoever that the drilling rigs are set for one of the upcoming releases. Most people are not expecting that before the fall, which means that we even have the low activity summer that could push these prices even lower and could actually make them very affordable by the time drilling rigs come out. Drilling rigs, I think, are also not seen as very massive structures in and of themselves, so I don't think that a lot of people are expecting a massive boom in needed PI materials all of a sudden from the drilling rigs. But one thing to keep in mind is that it's becoming more and more likely that we'll see a serious change to the entire mining and resource system in the plannings next. So this could all definitely change quite substantially, but at the moment, because everything is on such a far horizon, I think it's normal that we'll see even lower prices and continuing pressure on these advanced PI materials that are related to structures. Superconductors here, still selling at around 15k, yeah, probably selling for 14,600 though. That supply is coming in here. We've got 113,000 at 14.9, but here 50,000 at 14.6. Buyers are drying up to 13,000 ISK. So I would say that superconductors, which are not related to fuels, keep in mind a lot of the other stuff here, coolants, mechanical parts, enriched uranium is related to fuels, but superconductors look to be going back towards an average price, probably 13, 14k, something like that. Test cultures next. Oh, very interesting, actually going down. Are we getting close to a buy opportunity? 8,000 on average. Look at that, buyers below 8,000 ISK. I would say if you're looking for that PI investment, you could try a bit of a buy order close to 8,000 ISK. You're probably going to pick that up. And look at the potentials that we have here. 15k has not been out of the question before. Test culture very likely to be a base material for the structure related stuff though. keep that in mind as well. But 8,000 is definitely well below average, and I would consider this for the longer term. If at some point drilling rigs do come back, people need to make some extra advanced PI for that. They are going to need these test cultures, and if you're ready with some stocks, then you can actually make some money on that. Finally, wetware mainframe, clearly going down as well here. Average prices are heading, if I can grab them. Nope, don't want to tell me. All right. 2.3 million for the sellers, 2.2 million for the buyers, a little bit below that. 516 here, 424 here, another 300 coming in. So I would say that, yeah, wetware mainframes also under pressure has been the bottleneck, which is why it's still a little bit more expensive than self-harmonizing power core. But I think that the trend is pretty clear here. Without news of upcoming structures, I don't think we'll see these guys make a comeback at the moment. After PI, Tech One chips, 30 minutes in. What is it with the timestamps this time? I don't know, but let's get started here. So with the minerals hesitating a little bit, especially the high-sec minerals starting to form a bottom, I would think that the pressure here would be letting up, but average prices for the apocalypse, 152 million pretty much. Buyers are at 145 million, and what I'm definitely noticing here is that we have a lack of buy orders, and we still have 12, 14, almost 20 apocalypses coming to the market in the last 24 hours, which is on a daily volume basis around 3 days supply. That is still way too much. So I think that there's going to be a bit of a delay between minerals forming a bottom and actually coming back, and the Tech One ships, especially the bigger Tech One ships, forming their own bottom. Because at the moment people have had jobs running or have jobs running, and they still need to bring that stuff to the market. So yeah, in the last 24 hours, still 3 times more apocalypses being brought here, competing with each other for lower sell prices or for the highest possible sell price, and that is still 3 days supply, which is yeah, not looking too good. The arbitrator next here, the first one to actually show a little bit of a bottom forming here, quite interesting, but still below 8 million. Sellers are at 8.2 million, buyers are at 7.3 million. Again, what you should notice is the lack of demand, and then 160 here. That is quite a lot of them coming in again at 8.2 million. It's gonna stop the price from increasing. So this slight increase in price here probably triggered someone to dump 160 of them for 8.2 million. And now, of course, the point wanting the competition starts with anything fresh that comes below here, which is probably going to cause us to fall back just a little bit. Bellicose next, after oh my god, dumping really low towards 7.4 million. We're back up a little bit, 8.5 million here. Yeah, someone definitely decided to purchase all of those really cheap bellicoses. Maybe someone else decided to dump at the same time, because this is a very unusual volume spike. But here we can see that a substantial amount has been bought and that the prices are back up to a slightly more reasonable level. Still, I do think that at this point people will produce a lot of bellicoses. This will start to come back to the market substantially. So we are bound to still stay well below average, probably below 8 million on the seller side by next week. Buyers here 6.7 million, again not that many of them. The Breacher next. Which is only a frigate, so the mineral impact is not always as pronounced. Especially the Breacher, I think from time to time is a decently popular frigate, because, well, it's pretty good. It's a missile frigate, which I personally do like for PvP. So here we can see that after in December dumping very low towards 300,000 ISK, we crawled back a little bit and now we're basically hesitating. People don't really know what to do with the Breachers. There's a massive amount of them, but fresh sell orders, no, not that many. A couple of them, maybe 60 Breachers, 70 Breachers coming in the last 24 hours. Currently selling for 424,000 ISK. Buyers are at 405,000 ISK, so definitely pretty narrow margin here. And 60-70, what is that? 160, 60-70, around one day's supply, maybe 2 days supply here. So it's not that drastic to see these come in. This looks like it's going to continue to meander at the current trade range, just above 400,000 ISK. The Brutix next. On the Brutix, which is a battle cruiser, we can clearly see the impact of the mineral market quite a bit better. Tried to come back a little bit in early January, but right now the trend is unstoppable, and again we keep going lower and lower on these averages, constantly testing probably 46 million, something like that. 47.3 million for the sellers, 43.5 million for the buyers. And again, just like with the apocalypse, the bad news is that people have been producing these on very cheap minerals, and so that means that even now someone can come in with 102 Brutixes, try to sell them at 47.4 million and probably still makes a profit on his calculations of the minerals that he bought at the time, which means that we'll have to wait for the minerals to actually form a clear bottom, start trading at a higher price range, and then a little bit after that, after the delay, we'll probably see an impact in the Tech 1 ships, at least the biggest ones. Here's the catalyst, also still trending down quite clearly. Sellers below 1,960,000 ISK and buyers at 915,000 ISK, and despite that, here once again still 1100 of them being dumped by a single sell order. Cormorant next, that had a little bit of a jump up here probably when the Cormorant redesign was announced. So this is the old model, and we'll get the new model that looks quite a bit more sleek, round and modern. I like the Cormorant change, but yeah, we're still trading for very cheap Cormorants at the moment, selling for 1,186,000 ISK and buyers just above a million. What we do see here, I think, is that a little bit of position taking basically, because we're going down quite quickly from 1.2 million practically to 1.186 million, and it's in 20s, 30s, 70 here, 23, 10, 36 again. So I think that there's a few people that risked the investment on the Cormorant and that are now trying to sell those before the patch actually hits. Cluster shutdown alert. I still have 1 hour normally, so that should be possible. Crucifier next, definitely still trading at 1 year low price range, selling for 220,000 ISK, buyers at 181,000 ISK. There's just no demand for this stuff, and 120 for a frigate is probably not completely out of line either. The Drake, clearly at a 1 year low, currently trading for 42 million ISK, 42 million ISK right here for the sellers. Buyers at just above 40 million ISK, and here again, unfortunately, we can still see these 14.8 coming in. It's not as pronounced. We are, of course, also clearly at 1 year low prices, not at we are actually also at 1 year low prices, but not with the hesitation pattern of the Brutix, which sees another 100 being dumped. For the Drake, it's just been downwards for 1.5 months, and yeah, the sellers are still coming in, still selling Drakes at 42 million ISK here, which is pretty crazy, very, very cheap, clearly a 1 year low chart. If you're looking for a Tech 1 ship to invest in, to be honest, this chart looks like it's about ripe for a small purchase. Next up, you've got the Retriever, another chart that is clearly ripe for another purchase, but this one is a bit more risky. Retriever is currently selling at 18 million, used to sell for around 30 million ISK. But of course, this is due to the Orcas and the Rorquals that have basically been forced into the belts to provide their boost. They are decently good mining ships in and of themselves, and thus demand for these mining barges is much lower right now. People are probably, I would say, working towards the final goal now used to be get into Retriever, then skill up to a Mackinac, and always have a Retriever on hand when you feel a little bit frisky about a situation, or have a Mackinac for the best possible yield out there. And that's, I think, a lot of miners were thinking that way. Now all of that has just basically been blown away. Your goal is get yourself into the Orca, because it's a lot easier. You've got this much bigger cargo bay, and your yield is not as good as a maximum fit Mackinac, but it's so close to that that it's almost not worth it to bother with the Mackinac, to be honest. If you add in the trips that the Mackinac has to do with a full cargo hold that the Orca does not have to do, and I think that the Orca is actually going to be the better choice anyways. So this looks like a great investment, but it probably isn't, unless at some point CCP decides to completely change the meta once again. Here's the Tempest next, also trading at 1 year low, slightly up in the last few days, but selling for less than 150 million. And yeah, they're still coming in here in the last 24 hours. People still trying to sell their Tempests despite the fact that it's extremely low. Buyers are at 120 million, which is also almost nothing for a battleship. Next up, we've got Tick 2 ships at 39. Right, we'll just write down 39. It's a couple seconds after that, but that's okay. And here is the Ares. Yeah, actually taking off a little bit, quite interesting, from unfortunately 21.7, 22 million. So I would have liked to see the Ares go below 21 million. Then you know that you've got a great buy opportunity. But here from 22 million, currently selling for 23.2 million. It's really not gonna make you that much money, but there's a bit of a lack of supply at the moment, so it's gonna be tricky to actually pick up any cheap Areses at the moment because of a lack of supply. The Claw looked really interesting last week and is still looking quite interesting, I would say. Although some buyers have come in. I think we were close to 18 million, well, 18.8 million. You can pick up Claws at 19 million. If you look at the entire chart for 19 million right here, we're definitely below anything else. So once something happens in Nullsec and we still have a dumping of 463 Claws here at 20 million, you can pick up some cheap Claws at the moment. If you're looking for that Tick 2 investment, I think this one is in the right place to do so. The Crow next, unfortunately not in the best place. It's actually at 27.5 million just a couple of days ago and working its way back down. 26 million for the sellers, 23.8 for the buyers. Buy opportunity probably at around 22.5 million maybe, if you look at this average price here. So you could have made a little bit of money, but you had to be there to risk a buy opportunity here, which is a little bit risky at 24 million. Not a catching knife that anyone actually wants to catch. So this is quite unexpected, but showing some volatility in the Tick 2 market, which of course is a good sign for people looking for trades. Here is the Ares next, still working at very low 1-year prices. Volumes are picking up though, and here the buyers are empty. So again, for the longer term, because maybe something substantial happened to the Ares that makes it not worth it anymore. But at the moment, you're basically picking up Areses for a very cheap price. The Flycatcher is picking up though very nicely. Look at that. We could have bought these for 55 million. Currently selling for 74.8 million. Buyers are at 64.5 million as well. Forced up. This must be like a bit of an interdictor rebalance change. Did I read that on EVE updates? Probably. I'll have to take a closer look at that. But here again, Tick 2 market showing that it's alive. Great opportunity to sell some Flycatchers at the moment. Heretic next, also showing a nice volatility, went as low as 44.7 million, back up to 53 on the chart, selling for 54 million at the moment. There was definitely some money to be made if you bought early February and if you're looking to sell now. Here's the Hound next. After a nice December and January, a bit flatter at the moment, and again, if we look at where we are, we're not at the bottom just yet. We should be able to buy this below 18 million, but buyers are still sticking at 18.3 million, a little bit above what I would like to see. You do see massive supply here, so you could risk investing in it, but we're still not where I need to be. Keep the Ares story in mind though. That one did take off from a higher price point, so it is possible that the Hound will take off here. Then buying a couple on the buy orders, maybe 18.5 million, 18.6, something like that, would turn out to be the right choice. I personally would like to have the zero risk trade and actually be able to buy for less than 18 million. Start to see competition actually start at these 17.3 million buy orders. It's up to you to decide which way you want to go, of course, when it comes to Tick 2 market. The Malediction next, also showing a little bit of volatility, 21.2 million here, 29 million here. You're just selling for 24 million. So unfortunately, the good times are already over and we're actually crushed quite quickly by fresh supply. But again, at least there is a chance for some volatility in the market. Manticore, unfortunately, definitely stabilizing towards its current trade range. Currently selling for 24.3 million, definitely higher than the low points, and 22 million for the buyers. Low points, well, that's actually pretty close to a low point at 22 million. So the Manticore, also quite a bit of supply coming in. You could consider trying to purchase a couple of those. Keep in mind here 60, 22, 46. Investors are clearly starting to buy a Manticore at 22 million already. It's very unlikely that you'll be able to buy any cheaper ones. Then Nemesis next, this is just not the chart you want to see, at least at the tail end here we are starting to go down towards 21.8 million, but this is right bottoms below 20 million, tops 27.5 million, something like that. Right here 23, 24 million, this is not where we want to stay too long. So luckily the buyers are drying up and the sellers are still coming in with 51, 52 right here. So I think that the Nemesis 21 million, get rid of that buy order, start at 20 million, and here you're basically looking pretty good to buy some Nemesis. So if you want to keep an eye on one, I would say keep an eye on the Nemesis. If this actually gets filled, then you can try to compete with this 20 million one, and then you're actually going to get some of those Nemesis that are going to make you some real money if you can buy it like 20.1 million, 20.2 million, something like that. So this is in a great place to actually keep a very close eye on that. Why? The chart hasn't caught up to that yet. The fact that buyers could, with just 3 more Nemesis trades, be to the low point of 20 million and start their competition there. So this could be a really good place to look. Next up we get the purifiers, 23 million for the sellers, 552 of them coming in here. Buyers are at 20.3 million. Again here on the chart it's not exactly where we want to be. We would like to buy this below 20 million. But 20.4 million is still not that bad either. So the one thing is that I'm seeing decent amounts and decent competition as well. So I don't think that we'll basically be hitting these previous bottoms just yet. It's all up to you again to decide. Do you think that a trigger could happen now, or do you think that maybe lower activity is actually going to keep putting the pressure on the supply side of things? It's pretty obvious that we are still oversupplied in these stealth bombers. And finally we've got the Saber. This is nice if you're looking for that volatility. Here 51 million, high points 65 and more. Currently trading for 52, 51 million on the buyers. Again, just a couple, 8 of them, and we're again buying Sabers below 50 million. And that's when just like a week ago they were still trading for 65 million. This is the volatility that I've always liked in the Tech 2 market. This is where you actually make a little bit of money, but it's a bit of gambling as well, you have to be honest. Next up we have the Tech 3 market. That's at 46.30. Okay, as always we'll start with the destroyers here. Unfortunately the Confessor going to even lower prices. 27 million on the seller, still being dumped in massive numbers. I bought a few at 29 million. I think I might just want to buy a couple extra at 27 million to try and lower my average price. But this is definitely very, very low. 1-year lows are right here. Hecti next. Hesitating, still under pressure, currently selling for 32. That's one seller, then 35 million. Something like this gives me hope that the Confessor is actually in the right place to just start buying and then make money on the longer term. But it remains a risk. So here is the Hecate, despite massive volumes, still able to sell for more than 30 million at least. And yeah, that does make the Confessor look like a very interesting buy opportunity. The Jackdaw also working on yet another 1-year low, 27 million again being dumped at this price. I'm probably going to pick up a couple Jackdaws, a couple Confessor with these prices. And here this Vapel, similar pattern, 28 million. Maybe I'll try to pick up a couple at like at like 26 million or something like that. But the tactical destroyer market is oversupplied like crazy. 1-year low prices are still following each other. The real question is, do you think that this is going to last, yes or no? When it comes to the Tech 3 market, the Tech 3 cruiser market, we know that a possible rebalance is in the books. So that is something to keep in mind as well. And it looks like most people are expecting nerfs, I guess, because here we go, the Legion actually trading for really low prices on average, currently selling for 127 million. The buyers are down to 101 million for the Legion. That is extremely low, 100 million for a Legion hull. Next up here we get the Loki, not as low as we've been before, but again, definitely trading very low. Sellers 126, buyers 115 million. Yeah, legions here, I might want to pick up a couple. And then the Proteus here actually taking off a little bit, quite interesting. Went very low as well, but is actually back up to sellers at 132, buyers at 124. So this again makes the Legion buy orders look pretty crazy. And then finally we also have the Tengu 123, 129, and also came back a little bit, but is going back down on the average trace quite quickly as well. So the Tech Tree market, it's basically in the dumpster at the moment. If you're looking to buy at dumpster prices, then this is the right time to do so. Again, whenever I do see what I consider to be potentially investment opportunities, keep in mind, don't pour all your ISK in that. Be careful with what you do. That's what I do. I always go in for a couple of ships, maybe 100 million at a time is what I'm aiming for. So my buy orders are always for a single Tech Tree cruiser and maybe 3-4 tactical destroyers. And yeah, I do think that considering these charts, we could be at very low prices, and it could be good investments. But one thing to keep in mind, if rebalancing passes in the Tech Tree market are in the planning, you never know which way the bat is going to swing. It could be the nerf bat hitting them very hard, making them very undesirable. One thing though is they'll have to then be replaced by something else. So it's a gamble at the moment, the Tech Tree market, I have to be honest, but I'm slowly taking it here and there. You know, something like the Confessor here is just straight up selling for less than 27 million. You know, you could try and pick some up at 25, 26 million. I think I'll try to do that. And then the Legion buy orders at 100 million. I mean, this is just out 103, 104 million. If this is definitely the current situation, you should be able to pick that up, and that is a Legion for an extremely low price. So those are a couple of gambles that I'm probably going to take after finishing off this EVE talk right here. So keep one thing in mind, of course, if the Tech Tree is going to be rebalanced, this could swing either way. It could mean that yep, this is a great time to buy and you're gonna make a lot of ISK. It could also mean that nope, nerf bat comes and hits all of them very hard, and it turns out that this was a terrible investment. So from that perspective, don't risk all your ISK on this gamble. And finally, for the extra product, I wanted to take another look at the Sisters of Eve ships 5140. Just to see what these are trending at the moment. So let's take a look. Ships. Let's start with the frigates, faction, pirates, and it's the Astero, of course. Up in price a little bit towards 60 million, definitely trading above average for the entire year, although not by that much. Final few days a little bit under pressure, so sellers are at 59.2 million, buyers are at 56 million. A strong one thing to keep in mind for this, maybe also part of the reason why I want to check these out, is that LP for this is also being generated by Project Discovery. And if the next Project Discovery is about exoplanets, I think that there could be a lot of renewed interest into Project Discovery all of a sudden, at least for a short time. But considering the setting, I do like how they've incorporated the cell analysis that we had to do for Project Discovery into the lore, with you know, a disease at the moment and with everything around the sleepers, but it didn't really grip me that much. I think that a search for exoplanets in a Project Discovery setting is absolutely perfect for this game and could actually attract more players, more interest for a longer time as well. This of course would mean that more LP would be generated all of a sudden, and this should crash the prices for these Sisters of Eve ships, or at least pull them down quite a little bit. So it's interesting to see that the Astero is actually trading a little bit above average. I would say that that is partly an indication that there is not that much Project Discovery happening at the moment anymore. Let's take a look at the cruiser. If that one is up above average as well, that could be another strong indication. Here is the Stratios. The strategy is actually on its way down. That's quite surprising. I would have expected this one to be able to hold on to above 220 million or something like that. It's selling for 200 million, bars are at 187 million. So it's clearly not a unified picture here. Currently selling a little bit below average, 210, 220 is, yeah, 210 is probably the average. Okay, very interesting. The Stradio is very affordable at the moment. The Astero a little bit more expensive. Can't be the Alpha clones because they can't fly a ship that requirements both Galente and Amar cruiser or frigates. So this is a little bit surprising to me to see that the Stradios and the Astero are actually not in the same places. They should be tied to the same LP market. So one thing though, if the Stradios is the indicator, then the Astero could actually be set to go down here. So if we would follow this pattern through, then we would have the same as the Stradios here. So we could be back below average by now, but for some reason the Astero jumped up. So alright, quite interesting to see that between the two exploration ships that are actually really good, because they're basically Tech 1 when it comes to the skill requirements, but they have extremely good capabilities, covered ops, all of that good stuff, that we have this discrepancy between the two. Can't really place that. Finally, we'll maybe take a look at the Nestor as well. Faction, pirate faction, Nestor right here. Down is constantly going down in price, basically becoming more affordable. That's quite interesting. Currently selling for 400 million, bars are 369 million. Still quite expensive, of course, for a battleship. But if you want one, then this is probably the time to look into buying one. It's still 400 million. A rattlesnake used to cost that. What does a rattlesnake cost at the moment? Yeah, rattlesnake 370 million, a bit less than that. Basically, the Nestor has come into the trade range of good PvE faction battleships here, so becoming affordable. These guys used to cost like $1 billion when they were first introduced, managed to hold on to 700 million for quite a while, but now they are clearly down to affordable trade ranges. It could be interesting to see in the upcoming months what the Nestor actually does, if it ever goes back towards 700 million or not. So there you go. That's going to be it for this EVE Talk, guys. A little bit of a look at some of these System of EVE ships. I would say if you're looking for some decently affordable PvP ships that I would be willing to lose, then the Stradios is definitely in the right place at the moment. So that's it. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, I will see you next time.